It's JJK break week, y'all, so you already know what that means. We are full steam ahead on some Lobotomy Kaisen. And if you saw my video from a few days ago, we had a sponsor question that wanted me to give my take on some of these custom curse techniques that are out there. So since then, I put the word out to you guys to hit me with some of your favorites, and I also got shared a Reddit thread from that original sponsor who wanted me to look at some of those to react to. So that's what we're going to do today, and I actually got a ton of responses from you guys across all of the platforms, so this might need to be like a recurring series that we do because there's a lot in here to talk about. And since there were so many, y'all, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some of my favorites from that Reddit thread and then some of my favorites from you guys. And if I don't talk about yours, it doesn't mean I didn't like it. There were just so many. So like I said, this might need to be a recurring series that we do. Also, this is going to involve a lot of reading. So I'm going to throw things up on the screen, but I'm not going to read it word for word. I will read a lot of it probably, but we're just going to get the gist of these things. Anyway, these are two of my favorites from the original poster on the Reddit thread. He listed like 5 or 6 curse techniques, but I liked these two the best. So the first one is Flash Step. And essentially what that is he can create like a footprint of cursed energy and then teleport to that. And it basically lasts longer the more cursed energy he puts into it. And I could just see this being really cool. It's like a conditional teleport, right? And you can also explode the footsteps as well. So this just felt like there was so much cool potential with that one. I really liked the visual of it. And the other one is called Honest. And basically the user of the curse technique makes a statement. And if they fulfill that statement, they get a boost. So it's kind of like Naobito and Naoya's projection sorcery, just in a bit of a different way. Like instead of projecting out your movements, you make a statement, and if you fulfill it, you get a bonus, just like they do. So I really liked those two. So this next one is a comment in that Reddit thread, and it is called Senseless Dice. And of course, pause if you want to read the whole thing, but essentially how this one works is the user will roll a set of dice, and depending on what number they get, that will correspond to their opponent's 5 senses. So for example, 4 would be the sense of sight, so their opponent would lose their sense of sight. And I just thought this was creative and really cool, led to a lot of different avenues I could see this going. And they also included a domain expansion that was really cool. It's basically a big dice, and as they're in it, their opponent starts losing all of their senses one by one, leading to ultimately having all of their senses gone and just being left with the 6th sense, aka this inevitable feeling of their own death approaching. This next one was another comment from the Reddit thread, and it was called Needlework. And essentially what it was is they could create needles out of cursed energy and then utilize them in a variety of ways. So it's kind of like Nobra's, hairpin a little bit, but it basically goes way further than that. They're saying like if you were intelligent enough to know pressure points and how like the musculature of the body works for acupuncture, you could like put the needles in specific positions to like immobilize your opponents or, deal extreme damage. Or you could even use the needles on yourself to give your like adrenaline boosts and different bonuses. So I thought this one was extremely creative and really cool. And this last one from Reddit called Hand of God I thought was pretty cool. Basically how this one works is when you strike your opponent, it leaves like an imprint of your fist or your foot if you kicked them, whatever. And it basically does no damage, and then you choose when to activate it and deal damage. So it's pretty simple, but it's one of those techniques that I feel like could be so strategic depending on when you activate and deal the damage. Like somebody like Toto I feel like could really go crazy with this one. Or it's basically kind of Yuji's Divergent Fist, if he could just choose when to activate the damage. Anyway, I thought it was cool, and the domain expansion is essentially, you can do that all the time, everywhere. Next up, y'all, we're going to take a look at some comments directly from you guys, and this first one comes from Godyum, and it's really cool. It's called Chromatography. And as always, pause if you want to read it yourself, but essentially how this one works is you extract color from an object, and then you use that color, which enhances or gives you some form of ability. And it's the main colors of the rainbow. So anything that is, like a weird, obtuse color, it would just give you the effect of whatever main color it was closest to. And the domain expansion would expand and would literally drain the color out of everything in that area, giving the user to full access of all of it. And he actually doesn't include what each color's effect was in this comment, but luckily he replied and gave us some more info. So here we've got a breakdown of all of the colors and what they do, and just to quickly run through them. Red makes it explode. Yellow is a bright light that can stun or blind your opponent. Orange turns into a shikigami. Green is a painkiller or a numbing agent. Blue is a slow agent. It slows whatever it touches. Indigo, it wraps itself around a body part, basically enhancing it and also dealing like reflective damage. Violet is surrounds you like a shield. Black is like Miguel's rope, he describes, basically nullifying curse techniques. And white is just raw cursed energy that you can use however you want. Next up, we've got this one from Patrick, which is reflection. And basically, this curse technique lets you to utilize and manipulate reflections. You can even like go inside of mirrors. I'm imagining like the Mirrorverse and Doctor Strange, kind of like Megumi's 10 shadows, but instead of shadows, it's reflections, and there's no Shikigami. And the domain expansion is basically this infinite mirror setup, right, where the reflections are just repeating infinitely. You know, like when you stand between two mirrors. So I thought this was really cool. It actually kind of reminded me of that opponent from early in Naruto. I can't remember his name, but I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And next, we've got this one from Benjamin called Nilomancy, and basically what this is the effect of removal. And please pause to read to get the full explanation, but you can essentially manipulate things by removing them from existence. For example, gravity. So you could like remove the effect of gravity on your opponent. So this is one of those ones that would be really cool in the hands of like a strategic mastermind, right? Just basically reality manipulation to an extent, but just with certain caveats to it, right? And the domain expansion is basically full control over that. So I thought this one was really cool. Finally, to round out this video, Killian sent me a donation to check out his custom curse technique. So let's take a look at that. So this technique is cursed tool creation, and it's actually pretty cool. So this is similar to like what Yorozu and Mai do, but kind of taken to the next level. So as always, you know, pause if you want to read the whole thing. But essentially how this works is the curse technique can turn curses, shikigami, or even people into cursed tools. Now there are specific rules on how this works, kind of similar to Geto's curse spirit manipulation, where the curse spirit has to be weaker than him for him to you know, consume it or whatever. So the same kind of stipulations apply. And as far as like a human goes, you must first like fully defeat them in order to turn them into a cursed tool. And then the cursed tool's properties depends on the strength of whatever it is you're turning into one, right? So if you for example, were to turn Gojo into a cursed tool, you would then get to use one of the effects of his curse techniques in it. So you wouldn't get everything. You wouldn't be able to do everything Gojo does, but you could pick, you know, I want the infinity, or I want blue, red, etc. So this is just really cool. It definitely feels like an MC, like a main character's curse technique, because I could just see like the way the story progresses as they get more and more in their arsenal would just be a really cool kind of thing to play with narratively. And Killian actually goes really in depth explaining like the different effects of this curse technique and the nuance of how it can be used. And we're going to go into that a little bit. But you can just manipulate the curse tool even after you create it. So like, let's say you created a sword with Gojo's infinity into it. You could then switch it into like a crossbow later if you wanted to. And in addition to that type of reshaping, there's also an extension of the technique called archive, where you can like store these curse tools in much more manageable, smaller forms, right? So instead of lugging around like a full medieval armory at all times, you can transform a sword into like an earring or a ring or a necklace, right? And basically I was just imagining, again, like the MC of a story getting more and more blinged out as it goes on, and like seeing how they would utilize the different things they've picked up along the way. Next up, we've got a complete description of the domain expansion in 3 different forms: incomplete, complete, and barrierless. So Killian, you really put a lot of thought into this. I would love to know if this is a character like for a story you're writing, or if this was just simply a creative exercise to create a curse technique. So definitely like let us know in the comments. But the domain is called Pillars of Creation, which this is an awesome visual. For those of you unfamiliar, this is like a famous object isn't really the right word, but in space there's some beautiful photos of it, so check it out. That is like the aesthetic within the domain, and essentially what it is this big like anvil, and as you can imagine, within the domain you basically get full reign over this cursed tool creation. And as we progress from incomplete to complete, there adds a sure hit effect, which what that is when the domain comes out, this like big hammer will strike whoever's in it and basically expel an amount of cursed energy or the user's soul. And that can be instantly transformed into a cursed tool for the user to wield against the opponent. And in the barrierless domain, the range basically gets much wider. So you're including, potentially way more people, and you're getting a cursed tool built from all of that energy. Killian, thank you for the support, man. Really cool technique. And if you are writing a story with that character, I would love to hear more about it. And special shout out to Dip as well for the original sponsor video.